the first piece of work, and it was just great actually, I really liked it. He came into our show and we showed him with Guan Wei and all these great, you know, really important Chinese artists, and he went, "This is my first exhibition, this is so exciting." He was so excited. And what he'd done is he'd rolled newspaper into long strings almost of paper, rolled it in red paint, and then wrapped it up. And so he created seeds that he told me represented his family that were no longer here. So this was an installation that represented his family, made from history and news and current events, and rolled in blood. So it was just the most beautiful thing. And so we've kept in touch. And over the years I've opened a couple of his shows. But also I've been really pleased to be able to watch his career develop. One of the things that he started to do next was to play with the tea bag as a medium. And if you came to the last show here for Chinese New Year that I came to, he used the tea bag because the tea bag was a conversation. So each tea bag represented a period of time he'd spent with someone and encapsulated that conversation he had with someone. And I really like that, the simplicity of that concept, but also the way in which the tea bags could be manipulated to make lots of different things. And that leads me to your work in a moment, so hold that thought. Hold that thought. We'll get to the tea bags. And Lesley and Jay have spent some time studying together, about 2 years, doing studio work together at TAFE.
TAFE, yeah.
And so, as you do when you're students playing with clay and rolling clay and fixing kilns and setting things out, you have time to chat and get to know people, and these two got to know each other pretty well. And it seems from the very short conversation I've had with Lesley that there's been a lot in common between these two. And they've shared a lot of concerns and issues. They're very, their lives are embroiled in the issues that affect humanity and human sexuality and immigration and freedom and communication, and the ways in which people relate to each other, and the ways in which people either do or don't take responsibility for things. And so now we come to this exhibition that they've worked on together, and really, I walked around earlier and I was going, so that's Leslie's? Or is that yours? No, they work so well together. And I looked at that wall and I just thought, that is so beautiful, to have the artist's work just interwoven like that. So just a few things. Jay and I were talking about this piece before, and the folded paper, and I invite you in a moment to come and look across the image, because to me that's, I mean, it's very striking from this angle, but to me it's even sort of becomes almost ominous when you look across it, as it takes on the shape of boats and travel and migration. And we were talking about the fact that when he was a very small boy he used to make these, but after the family went to Indonesia he was not able to make these because you weren't allowed to be Chinese. You had to change your surname to an Indonesian surname. And so you lost your identity and your culture and your cultural practice. And so to play with these again, to bring these up from his childhood and fold them and make them, is like a meditation. And it's drawing him back to the time that he spent with his sister, which I think is very important. But also, as he was saying, when you look across them, it could be a reflection on the Dutch, you know, the Dutch East Indies, the Dutch coming to Indonesia, the Dutch murdering hundreds of thousands of Chinese. It could be a reflection on that. And there's a lot of things in this exhibition that could be reflections on, you know, the occupation by the Japanese, by Suharto, and the effects of Suharto on the population, and the ways in which, you know, people seek freedom, as Jay has in Australia. If we look at the begging bowl, someone was asking about the begging bowl before, and there's various begging bowls around the room, and both artists have played conceptually with this idea of the begging bowl. And Jayanto here has some begging bowls with blood in the bottom to represent some of the massacres. There is some begging bowls that have the Chinese offerings that you would have in the temples in China. I went to this tiny little village when I was in China last. I was way down in Yunnan, and it was the festival of the festival of the dead. It was Qingming. It was where you honour the ancestors, because you know, of course, that each year on the 7th day of the 7th month in the Chinese calendar, the doors of heaven and hell are thrown open and your ancestors come and roam the earth. You all know that, don't you? And you know that you've got to go out to the cemetery and weed, tidy everything up, make everything nice, You know that if you've got a spare chicken, you should slaughter it and, offer it up to the ancestors. You know that really, I mean, it's Sandgate Cemetery or out at Rookwood, you know that now on the Chinese tombs, they have bottles of beer and, they used to have rice wine and little bowls that was all Chinese, but now they have beer and hot dogs and it's all become a bit Australian, but you make offerings to the ancestors. So if you placate the ancestors, they're not going to get grumpy and they're not going to come and bother you. So they'll be nice, they'll look after you. So I happen to be in this tiny little village on the edge of a lake, and all the old ladies were there, and they had chickens, and the chickens they'd been slaughtered and dressed, but they were dressed up with feathers and boas, and and they were on these plates surrounded by fruit, and they were going to be offered to the ancestors, so the ancestors were going to be really impressed and really happy. And these begging bowls and the offerings are reminiscent of that. So the variety and the colour and the context of the various things that are being offered are really up to the individual, but it also is a demonstration of the amount of love and respect you have for your ancestor regardless of your wealth. So there's a level of inventiveness too. The begging bowls also in Indonesia, anyone who's been overseas would know all these variety of begging bowls to ask for people to offer you whether it's food or money or kindness. And what the artists have both taken on with this begging bowl is they're begging the audiences to really look at the environment and to respond to the environment. Not just look, but to see what's happening. And so the begging bowls are begging us as an audience to make a response to the environment and to be responsible people. Now there's a few other things we can talk about if you'd like me to. You're not going yet.
Yes, please.
I'm just standing here thinking what a fantastic speaker you are.
Yeah. I like art.
I wouldn't have known that.
And so if you want to just flick around, you've got the two paintings of the dancing feet, and we're talking about that too, and we're talking about the fact that dancing is a free thing. Dancing, it doesn't matter what culture you come from, it doesn't matter where you are, or how old you are, or what your wealth is, or what your social standing is. You can dance. And those two paintings juxtaposed beside each other are clearly different sorts of people in different sorts of places, and yet dancing almost identically. And I think that's one of the things that I love about art and culture and music, and the fact that I can, if you cover your eyes on a train in China and kids are laughing, you could be anywhere. The sound of kids laughing is a wonderful thing. And the music and the dance and the energy that takes you. In terms of dance, I've just got to digress a little, can I?
Yeah.
I was up in Warringari Arts, which is in Kununurra, and they do a Jumba. It's an Aboriginal community, and a Jumba is their traditional ceremonial dance. And I watched. I have a friend. Can you help her? She's a senior law woman. Her name's Agnes Armstrong. She's a big girl, and she loves to dance, and she's sexy as anything. Doing these dances, and she doesn't think she's sexy. I just think she's just so involved in the dance, and all the old men are playing the tapsticks and singing and playing the didgeridoo, and she's out there having a lovely time. And she asked me to look after her elderly mother who's in a wheelchair. And her elderly mother's sitting next to me in her wheelchair, and when the dancing started, she pushed the wheelchair away and stood up and danced. And I was just crying. You know, I was just thinking, you can't even walk, but you can dance. And it was the most beautiful thing. So that's what that reminds me of. And the eyes on the leaves are almost a request for us as audience to, as Lesley said, to not just look, but to actually see what's happening. And the branches below in the red are indicative of the blood flowing into the earth and the connection between the people and the earth. And then if you move around to the egg shapes, represent the future and the future children and what environment will they be born into, wrapped in barbed wire. And then there's some solitary creatures and some responses to too much plastic in the environment. But I draw you back to the begging bowls and the offerings, and ask that you thank both of the artists for this extraordinary collaboration where they have come together to create this magnificent work. And before I finish, can I just explain that these figures, and they worked about how should these figures be presented. They even collaborated on how the figures should be presented. Lesley has made these figures out of the tea bags because she saw the show that Jay did with the tea bags representing communication. So she used tea bags to make these figures that she thought originally should be back to back and not communicating. But after they had a chat, they realised that they too could be there with their begging bowls, inviting you to respond. So thank you very much for coming.